today. He's the CEO, founder of Business Improv, and the author of Yes and Getting to Yes and the Art of Business Improv. Welcome, Bob. I am so thrilled to have you here today.
Alicia, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, I know. And so you and I connected a few weeks ago through a mutual friend, connection, contact, all of those things of ours. As tends to happen, I find in the world, folks who are friends become business partners, become other connections and colleagues. And you have been immersed in not only the space of improv, like improv comedy, ladies and gentlemen, but how that applies to business for the last 26 plus years.
Yeah, as a performer, 26 years, as a small business owner, an entrepreneur, 21 years. So yeah, 2 decades anyway.
Amazing. And so why don't you give folks a little bit more of the spice in your background, besides, as though CEO and founder of Business Improv weren't enough, but why don't you walk us through a little bit of this component of what was the spark for you to see the magic and the power of improv in business, and then how you've been applying that?
Sure. So my undergrad degree is in business. So appropriately enough, I have a BS in business. And that's where my formal degree ends. Yes. The rest of it's just the School of Hard Knocks. So I was a very successful young businessman in Chicago, left it all to immerse myself in comedic improvisation, did everything in my power never to enter business again, and then cut to 5 years into from the time that I departed business to the time that I was broke as a joke. And there was no such thing in the mid-90s as a professional improviser. This was before Whose Line Is It Anyway and a lot of those other shows. And I depleted my savings account. And at this time where I'm wondering what I'm going to do next in life, and even borderline losing my Chicago condo, which was the only thing I did as an investment with my money when I was a businessman, I had the opportunity to create the first program in any business school anywhere in the entire world that focused solely on linking improvisation to business. And that was the fall of 1999. And that's really where I started getting into the behavioral sciences, behavioral psychology, cognitive psychology, org theory, behavioral economics. What I really do is study how and why we make decisions in real time, and then link them to things like adaptability or leadership, creating culture, dealing with change, thriving in the unknown and unexpected. This is where my base has been and my passion has been. I've had the opportunity to teach. I'm an adjunct at Duke Fuqua School of Business. I'm an adjunct at Columbia Business School. I work with a lot of great businesses and business people of all sizes around the world, especially now virtually. And we are in a constant, perpetual state of innovation and change in business improv. And that's what I'm excited to chat with you guys about.
Yes, well, thank you for sharing that. And speaking of business improv, as we're thinking about this moment that we're in, so I refer to the moment that we're in right now as a lightning bolt of disruption. There are other trends of disruption that come in waves or sometimes tsunamis, which can create big impact. But here we are in the face of this lightning bolt where it's shaken to the core what we think about our economic structures, our business structures, who our competition is. Talk to me a little bit about how you're seeing this moment and what business improv has to bring to it as we're looking at this moment that invites us to explore things anew.
This moment is, you said it, I love that phrase of a lightning bolt, because it was a fast strike. I mean, even though we could see it coming, there was a lot that we didn't prepare for, even know how to prepare for, because this is truly unknown. And so when it did actually hit us, it hit us hard. And that moment to regroup and take a deep breath, I think, is super important. As soon as we can catch our breath, take that deep breath and figure out how to move forward, because ultimately we're all forced in this pilot program. We are all in a forced pilot program right now. And that is creating entrepreneurs of pretty much everyone. And for those who are solopreneurs or entrepreneurs or small businesses, owners like myself, all of those things, it forces us to scramble in a different way. And for me, we've been planning to get into the virtual spaces for about a decade now. In the last 3 years, we've really been focusing on it. So Business Improv is virtual and we are digital as well. At the same time, everybody needs to be on their toes. Everyone needs to be flexible and adaptable. And we have to be agents of change. And this is really where Business Improv comes into play, because improvisation at its core is based on 3 core competencies. And that's reacting, adapting, and communicating. Reacting means you're focused and present in real time, and it's ongoing. It's not a reaction, right? That's a one-off.
Yeah,
Reacting.
so it's not a static activity. It's actually
right.
a rolling activity.
Yes, and then if you're adapting, you're reacting within parameters or trying to achieve a specific outcome, like in a strategy, or forced to communicate through a medium that you're not that comfortable communicating with, or in unknown environments where you have makeshift offices put up in real time with other people working on kitchen tables and bedrooms and floors, and we're all forced in this reacting and adapting part. The subroot to this, and I think this is a super important and very relevant, is communicating.
Yeah.
That we have to always be talking. We have to communicate with each other, especially through this medium, where as forced entrepreneurs now operating on our own times and our schedules and homeschooling and whatever those challenges might be, we all are grappling in a different way. And if we stop communicating, it becomes very dangerous to a lot of people, including, up in that space.
Yeah. Yeah. And so when you talked yesterday, I heard, I was listening to a podcast that was talking about how we as leaders how we can lead in the face of this crisis, and how then the next step of that being how we communicate. And this person was dividing the how we communicate between empathy. So, hi, I see you. I see that things are scary for you or terrifying or that they're just plain weird. And then confidence. There's action steps, things to do. So thinking about the scope of our audience here and people who are, how does, okay, so this has an underlying assumption to it, which is that communication needs to change in a moment like this. But how do we think about how that communication and connecting needs to shift in this moment as we move through a shift?
So I think your assumption is correct, first of all, because Business Improv has always been a virtual team. We've always had a virtual company, New York, Chicago, LA. I've been working out of my house for a long time. So this shift has not actually, it's dramatic across the board. It has personally, professionally affected me like everyone else. At the same time, though, the communication has to be different. If for no other reason, there are no longer these casual water cooler talks. We don't bump into each other in the hallway and be like, oh, I've been meaning to email you, or can we, after this meeting, can we get together for a few minutes? Everything has to be structured differently. And the empathy part of this, I think, is crucial. Now it's time for the IQ and the EQ to come together really in a great way, because you can read nonverbal communication this way. You just have to focus in a different way. Yeah. And if you're going to make eye contact, it's no longer looking at the screen. You look at the dot. You look at this little dot right there. And you say, now I'm making eye contact with you. And you have to look down and up and down and up. And it's something that a lot of people don't realize, that you can actually not only link to somebody in this way, you can read them in this way and understand the language that they're using, the subtext. I have heard people say, I do not know if I'll make it through this. And that to me is a bell. That's somebody's ringing. They're saying, I need some help right now. Yeah. And no matter what size our company is, if we're not paying attention to that and listening to that as leaders, we are not only missing opportunities to connect and build strong relationships, we're missing opportunities to help each other.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that this is help and collaboration is one of the themes that's going to help all of us as we move through this. Now, I want to ask you how, moving back to this idea of a business improvisational mindset and how it's similar to an entrepreneurial mindset, as we are, many of us were already entrepreneurs. And as you rightly said, some of us are now being given the grand invitation to become entrepreneurs for the first time in this moment. So how are these things similar and what can we apply?
Absolutely. So an improvisational mindset is super agile. It's super flexible. It's super
I
adaptable.
like the boxing movement. You said I
This
feel
is
like I'm kind of sparring with you as you do.
well, that's a lot of what, so internally for business improv, or even in the, I'll plug it, the book right there, you'll see and hear things like energy and attitude are choices. I don't know if you could see the messages I have for myself back here.
Oh, I
Stay
can't.
focused, never stop trying, stay positive.
Nice.
These messages have to not only be reminders for us, the choice aspect of this is super important. So these little pops of energy that I bring, I'm hoping it resonates with, with our peers or our friends out there that I haven't met yet, and our audiences, because it should have that little pop. Because how many times have you seen people present like this, and this
Oh,
medium, it doesn't matter. It's like, whoa, what the heck is that all about?
yeah.
So we have to be flexible. We have to be agile. And the improvisational mind is that way by nature. It's not driving one thing and saying, this is the only way to do it. It's saying, all right, that's my goal. I have to get out there. I have to achieve this goal, this mission. I have to make the strategy work. And then I'm going to be super flexible on how to do it. Whether it's taking the best practices, learning with a trip up that took place along along the path rather, or minefield, I suppose, it could be. And not replicating mistakes, and figuring out how to replicate things that were successes so they're not just happy accidents. That's an improvisational mind. That's an entrepreneurial mind as well. It's problem solving. It's making it work. It's figuring out how to make it work, or at the very least, trying to make it work.
I love this. So there's a lot inside of this that I want to unpack, and I want to remind everybody that if you have questions, and as you have questions, please do put them here in the chat bar or in the Q&A so that I can make sure that Bob is able to address them. I don't want to lose this point that you brought to the front, which is that energy and attitude are choices.
Yes.
And in this moment, in this first acute moment of crisis. So as we're looking at this, I see us in kind of three moments of time. There's the acute moment of crisis that we're in right now. There's the interim that's coming next. So some businesses will be open, some things will be moving, but it's certainly not going to look like anything we were used to before. And then there will be a new world. And any way you slice it, this feels like a marathon to me.
Yeah.
And so talk about this idea that energy and attitude are choices.
Yes, absolutely. So first, let's put an asterisk. We're not talking about chemistry, okay? Not internal chemistry of any kind whatsoever. We're talking about more circumstantial and environmental types of things that even the notes that I have, I'm very energetic, and I'm very positive as a whole. And I still, in this moment of our lives, need to remind myself to stay positive, to remember that I have a sense of humor, and that people are looking at me. Children are looking at me on a day-to-day basis. So what I say is, first of all, knowing that energy and attitude are choices. And I'll say this very quickly. If anybody thinks it's not, get up, move your arms around, pump your arms up, do something right now that gets the heart pumping. Because I will bet you a cup of coffee or a beer one day virtually, that your heart rate changes. So that means your oxygen that you're distributing throughout your body moves faster. So that means you're oxygenating the brain, which means that we can increase the speed with which we can focus, concentrate, be deliberate and intentional. And then it's a matter of understanding that people are looking at us, whether inside of our houses or across the screen. So that little pop, that little difference that you can make, understanding that the small tweak of energy and attitude could rub off on somebody else, could make the difference, not only in somebody's day for the short term, the way that somebody thinks, the way that somebody's beginning to adjust in this second tier that we're in, so that when we start focusing on that end of the marathon, the last, 6 miles, the 26.4 miles or whatever it is. We're focusing on how to succeed and how to thrive. And right now, it should be how to persevere, how to get through, and how to take care of each other.
How to persevere and take care of each other. And something else that I like to, that I also don't want to lose here in the midst of this. So the first piece is a mindset piece. Energy and attitude are a choice, and there are ways that we can physically get ourselves into higher energy, better attitude. And then you said something about adaptability and how we react. And so although, okay, great, from a better, stronger mindset, we now create a plan. Mm-hmm. But then there's flexibility into achievement of that goal.
Yes, I'll go to Eisenhower, General Eisenhower, President Eisenhower quote, which is, planning is everything, plans are useless.
Yes.
So it's really about the planning. It's about mapping out a strategy for success and then being as adaptable as possible, mm-hmm. so that you get to that success. Because if we don't know where we're going with this, there's unknown roadblocks in front of us. There's unknown detours that we can't even fathom right now. So you have to have that really flexible mindset, whether it's, I took some Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, that's where I go back to, or it's just getting the heart pumping, whatever it might be. Cling to yes and for this, okay? Getting to yes and is the book. Yes and is the cornerstone of all improv around the world, and this will help you create a flexible mindset. Because yes isn't, I like what's happening. Yes isn't even, I agree that this is the norm. Yes is, I understand that this is the reality right now. That yes, this is happening. And is the bridge to what you can control. What can you do about it? How can you figure out how to succeed? So when you get to these speed bumps and these obstacles, it's not, oh, I have an obstacle in front of me. It's okay, this is in front of me. And what am I going to do to get past it, remove it, blow it up, go dig underneath it, continue to move on, take a detour,
Yeah. And that recognition that whatever we're in the midst of, whatever we're facing, whatever we are, whatever is happening in our environment. So this is one of the things that I think people get, when they think, oh, improv comedy, or, oh, positive thinking and energy, that one of the assumptions that people will go to is, but this is, that's Pollyannish, or it's not reality. But there's an important distinction in really giving a nod to, yes, we're here. Mm-hmm. It exists, we're in this moment, and now what do we want to do with it? And that and doesn't mean necessarily hiding under your couch and eating potato chips for the next 24 months.
Yeah, well, not for the next 24 months, maybe for a few hours, sure. Especially if they're good potato chips, let's be clear. And yeah, I've gotten that for 21 years that people will dismiss this as just comedy. I would throw out there very quickly, does the military improvise? Do EMTs, first responders, firefighters, police improvise? Cooking shows, it's like, what's in the basket, right? And it's like, oh, please out. And then everybody's improvising. The output that people think is the derivative of improvisation is comedy. However, that's the reverse. It's really all about the focus and concentration, presence, engagement, adaptability, flexibility, nimbleness, community. At its core, improvisation is a communication and collaboration-based art form. So that means we're always talking to each other and collaborating with each other. And that's the thing that can be applied anywhere, including parenting, for example. It's across the board. And small business owners, businesses, entrepreneurs, we have to have, and that's, I really do mean that the improvisational mindset, business improvisational mindset anyway, and the entrepreneurial mindset are really like right on top of each other.
Yeah. Well, I had the opportunity to take some improv classes myself early on, early on in my career. And the fundamentals from that have been such a mainstay of my own ability to adapt in high pressure situations and unknowing situations. How many times you walk into a boardroom and you think your presentation is going to be a half an hour, and then it's like, no, you've got 2 minutes, go. And then you got to learn how to roll with it. You can't say, no, I don't think this is going to work for me. You've got to really,
you say that and the board's like, okay, then go.
So thanks for not being here anymore. Yeah. So Patricia just sent in a question here and wants to know, what practice do you use, Bob, for changing or managing your state, your mental, physical state, in the moment of challenge for a flexible mindset beyond a morning wake-up routine or something like that?
Yes. So, okay. We all get hit with tricky news all the time right now. For me, it's the PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program, which is like, And we just got hit with some less than good news. So one, it's just recognize it, take it, take it, just absorb it. You know, if that means cry, cry. If that means, yell in a pillow, because I don't want my kids to hear me, yell in a pillow, do whatever you need to do in that moment so that you're not just bottling it up and just pushing it down. All right. And then second, take a deep breath. And for me, what I do is think about, like, what are the things around me that are important? Why am I fighting? You know, my employees, because I'm not letting anybody go, and I'm not cutting health insurance. I'm going to the very, very last minute with them, and they are with me as well, and my family. And then I just pull it up. Sometimes I'll go for, my office is about 8 feet now, 6 feet, 6 feet. So I'm in a little cell here. So I'll go for a walk. I will do this. I will jump up and down a little bit. And once again, I have pictures of important people on my walls. I do have positive notes that I put up for myself as well. And then get back to work.
Yeah.
That's it for me. It's a very, very motivating factor to figure out how to communicate that not only is improvisation important in business, we've moved it to the virtual world, and people are like, you can't do improv in a virtual world. I'm like, you can. Business improv, you can.
Well, yes, you can. Let me show you.
Yes.
My introductory package and my much more interesting custom package.
Yes.
Offer to you and your company. Yeah. Well, that's the magic of this right now. I think that one of the beauties of, inside of this disruption, which I see, disruption is simply opportunity that looks different than what we're used to.
It can be, yes.
And so inside of this space, so much of what we were used to and what we thought were our business opportunities, they're simply not available. And so in the face of that unavailability, the game can become, how do we make this happen even in the space of never being able to be in the same room with people? My business before March 7th was 98% in person.
Yes.
Because of the style. So although I don't do improv, much of what I'm doing is interacting with my clients. Even when we're doing strategic planning, it's about being up and designing, and then all of a sudden you're 100% online.
Yes.
Well, the only answer is yes, of course you can do this online.
Yes. Well, I mean, the options are almost zero sum, right?
Yeah.
Right now, this is what we're all forced to do. So I have to give credit to my VP of development, Josh Pryor, who started calling it a forced pilot program. So that's where that phrase started. That's what we're in. So if that's what we're in, then that's what we need to do.
I love this. So as we are moving toward the top of the hour here, I know that this conversation could go on for 80 million, 100 hours. And we are moving into what's going to be an interim moment of business where whatever even best practices were that existed before aren't, so this is also my assumption, probably likely not going to be applicable in this time. Certainly the streams of revenue that we had counted on before won't be structured in that same way. And so how can Yes and use as a technique help us through what's going to be constant change and adapting and change and adapting and change and adapting?
All right. So there's a big difference between yes and yes but. And that difference is not just language and the way that we influence other people. It actually directly relates to the way we start thinking. So very often we start focusing on why we can't succeed, the parameters, the budgets, the restrictions. And what we need to do, and that's, in the spirit of divergent thinking and convergent thinking. Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, I was about to draw a crude illustration there.
I'll do your visual.
Good. Yeah. All right, good. So that's the convergent side, right? That's where we're narrowing the focus. That's where we are trying to edit and create at the same time. And that's dangerous to edit and create at the same time. You need to create this arena in that spirit of divergent thinking, wherein it's fail early, fail often, postpone judgment. And this is where yes and is going to be a big, big part of this. It doesn't mean abandon judgment. It just means defer it. deliberately and say, okay, I need to explore all options. I need to look at this from as many angles as humanly possible. I need to find some allies internally or externally to brainstorm, spitball, whatever it might be, that you're just coming up with crazy, wild ideas. And then you go down to the convergent side. And that's where, you know, inside all these crazy ideas, you're panning for gold. All you're trying to do is increase the probability for success on the convergent side, where you sift, you sort, till you finally get those little nuggets of gold. And then you go back in the divergent side and say, I got to refine these little nuggets of gold. I got to do something with these. Otherwise, they're just going to sit on the shelf.
Yeah, I love this. This is similar to though I know there's some folks from the design community or the design thinking community also watching us. So it's, if you're familiar with that language too, the improv piece sounds an awful lot like the divergence and the convergence from design thinking and rapid prototyping for those doing agile and those kinds of things. It's for me, I had the great luck of finding that earlier on in my career. So it makes planning and business and strategy fun.
Yes, or at the very least, for those who are like fun, it's less taxing. When you truly are separating, what we're talking about is truly separating the creation side, where especially in a collaborative environment, even virtually, people are not afraid to fail, not afraid to say the wrong thing, you know, that they're just talking. We're just talking with each other. And you separate that from the time where you start editing, being more critical. That doesn't mean criticizing, being more critical though, to sort through the ideas.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
It can make that,
That's beautiful. And so there's one big question. There are three separate questions, but really I think one big question from Jay as we're coming into the final stretch here. As we're improvising in the face of this disruption, what are your thoughts on this space between being a generalist or a deep expert as we are improvising and as we are rapidly adapting to what's happening? Is that a necessity?
To be a deep expert or to generalize?
Yeah, so there's well, so this is also the assumption of there's an either or in these, you know, so are you going to be a generalist or a deep expert in something as you improvise, or can anybody do it?
Okay, so one, everybody can do improvisation, or most specifically, if you're in business improvisation, because it's all reduced down to very, very simple things. And it's something that you can do on your own, in your house, or with other people virtually as well. So all this is accessible. I don't know that there's a right answer. And I want to go back to, I think it was Pamela, you said, who wanted to warm up, you know, that type of thing. You have to figure that out for yourself, I think, because part of, I mean, my whole path was and will continue to be on improv, or most specifically linking the art of improv, the performance, the comedy, the theatrical side, to business through experiential learning, through the behavioral sciences, through real world examples and return on investment. That's my path. And in doing so, though, I widen out quite often. You know, I'll learn about businesses. I'll learn, like when I'm working with the military, that's a different group than when I'm working with creatives or working with pharma or working with small businesses. Everybody is different. Everybody has their own nuances. So in some capacity, I have to widen that out again and just kind of like be, if nothing else, a student, be open to learning. And that should create that wide and then narrow it back down then to. So I would say, we all have to figure it out.
Yeah, and under that, I hear a component of curiosity, the magic of curiosity.
Oh yes, and vulnerability, humility, especially now. Like, if to be a student again, to be open to learning, and once again, I'll go to that divergent side personally, not ideation, just postponing judgment of yourself and what you're learning, and that curiosity lives in that divergent side.
Oh, that's gorgeous. Well, Bob, we are at the top of the hour, believe it or not. Just before I say goodbye to you, there was a question here about where people can purchase your book, where you will get the most profit. I love that angle to the question. So what's your preferred channel of purchase, Bob?
Well, oddly, I'm going to say Amazon. Amazon's the preferred channel because if people are going there and writing comments and things like that, it will boost us to the top.
Right.
If you're interested in any personal or professional development, we created the first ever asynchronous learning program called Improvisational Communication. And if you come to businessimprov.com, you'll be able to find that. And also, if you just have questions, I mean, if there's anything I can do to support anybody around the world, let me know, because we got to get each other's backs, and I'd love to help you help yourself.
Awesome. Bob, thank you so much for joining us today as we think about this transition from now to next, energy and attitude being a choice, the focus on what's possible as opposed to what's not, and then in the moment of creating, moving judgment to the side and allowing yourselves to explore.
Absolutely. And if you want a free download, find me online too. There's Business Improv free download or something like that. I don't know. If you want it, ask us. We'll send you something.
Yeah, we'll be sending that out also in the email after this. So Bob,
I got to get better at plugging myself.
Don't worry.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.